driving down these quaint Serbian countryside roads. Once you get out of Belgrade, driving in Serbia is a real treat. I'm headed to the town of the original vampire. In fact, vampire is a Serbian word. But I don't believe we're going to encounter the romanticized version, Count Dracula, that charming aristocrat that seduces the young woman. Instead, I think there's a story here which is oddly related to coronavirus. This guy moved his wheelbarrow out of the way from me and invited me in for a rakia, which is like a Serbian brandy. Could be made from any kind of fruit. Let's see what he's got. Dobar dan.
Bravo, ljudi dobri. Ajte, izvolite. Mi imamo krov sređivali gore i to ceramide i to crep.
Jaka?
Jaka pa ostala nepečena.
Means strong, like not well cooked, but it's a joke.
Može pomozi. Dobro vi nama došli. Zdravo budi.
Može, živjeli.
I drugi put da se nađemo i da sednemo.
Although the conversation was colored by rakia, generally I felt like I was on the right track.
Sveštenici u to vreme verovali u vampire i da su otkopavali te ljude i probadali ih. Kolje.
The men also warned finding Sava's original grave was nearly impossible, like it didn't want to be found. Most folks in a village get buried together in a common graveyard, but people who are considered bad are not. In the hamlet of Zarage, there was a guy so unsavory by the name of Sava Savanovic that the people were like, dude, we had to deal with you while you were alive, but now that you're dead, we're gonna bury you way over there, all alone. They would never have to see old Sava Savanovic again. Or would they? This was an old flour mill. Shortly after Sava Savanovic bit the dust, the family that ran this mill began to drop dead one after the other. That was probably the same thing that killed Sava, tuberculosis or some other kind of plague. But back then they didn't have the science to know this, and in the absence of knowledge, they began to develop their own crackpot theories. You remember when coronavirus first came out? It was so confusing. Nobody knew what the fuck was going on. So we grasped for what we did know. We do know that 5G is rolling out. We know there's been class warfare for a long time across the world. We know there are bioweapons labs. And we just ran with some theories. Well, imagine how much less they knew back then and how crazier their theories may have been. The townspeople figured, we buried that grumpy cat Sava Savanovic not that far away from this cabin. And he was such a mean son of a bitch. Maybe he somehow evaded death and came back to enact his revenge against the living by killing this family. But there was only one way to test this theory. They came to Sava's lonely grave, dug it up, and what they found shocked them. It turns out the dead decompose in different ways, but back then they didn't know that. So when they found old Sava's body, still looking intact, with dark fluid around his mouth, they thought, oh shit.
Sava must be a vampire.
This conspiracy theory became a common way of explaining any unknown illness, and it turned into a hysteria, kind of like the Satanic Panic or the Salem witch trials. Anytime a row of people died, bodies were exhumed, burned, and staked. They say it's hard to find, but let's see if we can find Sava's old lonely grave. Here's one thing I love about Serbia. Trying to find this story is like going on an exploration through an unknown landscape. You go to other countries that are famous for vampires, you got ticket booths, you get tour guides, you get tourists. Here it's like you're into the great unknown, looking for the story. Don't know what you're gonna find. Love it.
Like literally went all over the road. Whoa.
original vampire was a bloated corpse. Not as fascinating as the romanticized version, but what are you gonna do? What was cool, and the highlight of the trip, was this guy that I asked for directions on the way in, invites me to his house for a coffee and a rakia on the way out. I get to see his home. He shows me his gun collection. We have one of those beautiful human-to-human moments of connection that you seem to have a lot in Serbia. And speaking of good moments in Serbia, my trip continues. If you'd like to see more of this wonderful country, just hit that subscribe button and stay tuned. Thank you for watching. I'm Jonathan Legg.